Hello and welcome to Lauren's English Corner. In today's lesson we're going to be looking at the tense present perfect. We're going to look at the structure, how to make the pattern of the present perfect, and also look at the reasons why and when we use it. So first let's look at the structure. If we want to use the present perfect, we start with the subject, which would be the person. The pronoun I, he, she, it, or the person's name, or the animal, etc. So first is the subject. Then we use have or has. So for example, I, we, you, and they, we would use have. And for he, she, and it, we would use has. And then the third part is the past participle. Now this is the verb. And the past participle for regular verbs would be the same for the past simple. We just add ed. For example, work, worked, clean, cleaned, start, started. If you want to learn about the different ways to pronounce ed endings, I have a video on ed endings and their pronunciation, so you can check that out. For irregular verbs, you need to use the third column to find the past participle. What I mean by the third column is that you will find a list of irregular verbs in most grammar books, and they will be set up in 3 columns. The first column being the verb in the infinitive, unchanged. The second column being the verb in the past simple form. And the third column would be the past participle. And this is what we need to use when we're using the present perfect. So for example, go. For past simple, we say I went. But for the past participle, for present perfect, we say I have gone. I also have a lesson on the different patterns of the irregular verbs, which you can watch as well. So that's the pattern, that's the structure for the present perfect. Subject, have or has, plus the verb in the past participle form. So, why and when do we use the present perfect? Well, there are three main reasons. The first reason is for something that has started in the past, but is still true. It still continues. So, for example, I have lived in England for all my life. I have lived in England for all my life. I have taught English for 14 years. I have taught English for 14 years. So I started 14 years ago. I'm still teaching English, so it's still true now. So I would use the present perfect. I have taught English for 14 years. Now, you can use the present perfect continuous as well for this particular reason. Again, I have been teaching English for 14 years is also correct. Okay, so that's for the first reason. If you wanted to use he or she, you would just use has. So for example, he has been studying Chinese for 5 years. He has been studying Chinese for 5 years, or he has studied Chinese for 5 years. He has studied Chinese for 5 years. Okay, so the second reason that we use the present perfect, this is when we're still talking about something that has happened in the past, but we're interested in the present result. So for example, if you break your arm, maybe you did it last week, so you could say I broke my arm last week. But when you've broken your arm, when you break an arm, it doesn't get better very straight away. It takes some time, and you have to wear a cast. So while your arm is in a cast, if someone was to see you, you would say, or they ask you, "Oh no, what have you done?" You say, "I have broken my arm. I have broken my arm." So the break happened in the past, but it's still broken. It's still in the cast. So you would use present perfect. I have broken my arm. Or for example, you have eaten lots of sweets. So you've been eating sweets and now you have a stomach ache. So you could say, oh, my stomach really hurts. I think I've eaten too many sweets. I think I've eaten too many sweets. So I have eaten, because the eating of the sweets happened in the past, but we're concentrating on the present result, the fact that you have a pain in your stomach. So you would say, I have eaten too many sweets. This can also be used for something that has just happened. So you can still see the result. For example, if you're running for your train and the train goes, it leaves the station, you miss the train, you would say, oh no, I've missed my train. I have missed my train. So it just happened, just this second. You can still see the train driving away from the station. So you would say, I have missed my train. An example with she or he, we could say, he's just left. So for example, if somebody asked, where's David? You could say, oh, he's just left. He has just left. So this is something that has happened just this second. Perhaps even the door is closing because he's just left the room and the door is shutting behind him. So we can use present perfect for something that happened in the past, but it's only just happened this second, a few seconds before, or we're concentrating on the present result, something that we can still see the result of. What about the third reason? Well, the third reason is when we talk about our experiences in our life, but we don't mention when they happened. So we're just talking about things that we have done in our life. So why is it the present perfect? Well, things that we've done in our life could be any time from when we were born right up until now, the present. So we're still talking about something to do with the past and something to do with now. So any experience you've had could be from your birth until now. So we would use the present perfect. You can say, or I can say, I have flown in a helicopter. I have flown in a helicopter. I have eaten ostrich meat. I have eaten ostrich meat. Or I have been to New York. I have been to New York. Been comes from the verb to be, is, are. In the past we would say was, were, and for the present perfect we would say been. I have been to New York. Now, if in all of these cases I was talking about experiences that I've had in my life and I didn't say when they happened, so the question would also be in the present perfect. Have you been to New York? Not did you go to New York? Have you eaten ostrich? Have you ever eaten ostrich? Have you flown in a helicopter before? So this is the question if you want to know if somebody's done something in their life. But if we want to then talk about it in more detail and give more information, that's when we need to use the past simple, because we're talking now about the finished action. So for example, I have been to New York. You could ask, when did you go? I went to New York last year. Or who did you go with? I went with my husband, my daughter and my sister. For the ostrich meat, you could ask, where did you eat ostrich meat? I ate it in South Africa in 2010. So because now we're talking about when it happened, we need to use the past simple. But if you're just talking in general about things that you've done, then you need to use the present perfect. I have done. I have been, I have eaten, I have ridden a camel, for example, or he has ridden a camel. So those are the three different ways or the different reasons that we use the present perfect. One thing to notice is that in most of the examples I try to use the full word have, has, so I have, she has. However, you must remember that in English, most of the time we use contractions. So you will hear people say I've been to New York, I've eaten ostrich meat, I've flown in a helicopter. Because we put the I have and we make it smaller, I've. Same would be for they have, they've, we have, we've, you have, you've. And for he and she and it, we put the has together and we say she's, he's and it's. So in written form as well, we would do the same. We would put the apostrophe S and apostrophe VE to make it shorter and make the contraction. What about if you are teaching these examples at your school? What can we do to help us to be able to make a lesson about these particular scenarios, these particular reasons for using present perfect? So for the first example, something that started in the past but is still true, we could write about our own experiences. We can talk about things in our life that haven't finished and compare that with things that have finished. So, for example, if you lived in another country for a short time, I lived in China for 1 year in 2012. So I can say I lived in China, but I would say I have lived in England for 32 years. So get your students, or if you're a student yourself and you want to practice, write down some sentences of finished actions, things that you have that you no longer do, that are no longer true, and then make some sentences of things that are still true using that pattern. What about things that happened in the past but we're looking at the present result? Well, one way we can do a lesson on this or practice of this is to have pictures of people who have just done something, like getting out of the shower. He's just got out the shower. He's just got out the shower. Or you can have two people leaving a church or driving away in a car that says just married, and you would say they have just got married. They have just got married. Or you can talk about something that's changed, that you can see the present result. For example, I've cut my hair. So the hair was long, now I have cut my hair. It's short. And what about the last reason? Talking about your experiences. A good game for this could be having different cards with many different experiences, like fallen asleep on a bus, eaten snake, sung in public, anything that might be unusual that maybe some people will have done and some people won't have done. In fact, if you want to test your ability to change the verb, you could keep the verb in the present form. So, for example, fallen asleep should say fell asleep on the bus, and sing in public instead of sung in public. So the cards need to be given out to everybody, and then they have to go around and ask the question, have you ever sung in public? So they need to change from the verb from sing to sung. Or have you ever eaten snake? Then if the person says yes, you could then turn it into practice of the present simple by asking questions with did. For example, have you ever sung in public? Someone says, yes, I have. You could then ask them, where? Where did you sing in public? Or why? Why did you sing in public? Or when? When did you sing in public? So that's a good game that you can use in class to be able to get your students to practice talking about their past experiences using present perfect and using past simple. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time on Lauren's English Corner. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Goodbye.